You're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social magazine that's broadcast in English and Persian by New Channel TV. Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. In this week's program, we'll be celebrating Persian New Year or Nowruz. Happy Nowruz to
Happy
everybody.
Nowruz. We're drinking wine to your health.
Yes. Are you going to have fun tonight, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. During the course of the tonight's program, we'll be showing you some of the clips, discussion we've had with a few people. We've asked them what's been their best moment in the last year, and we'll tell you about our best moment.
In the shocking news of the week, we've got a Quran teacher in Turkey telling unveiled students of 13 years old that they deserve to be raped because they're not veiled. In Insane Fatwa of the Week, it's from our very own Mr. Khamenei and his new proposal to make women in Iran baby-making machines.
And the good news of the week is that Swedish government has tore up the arms deal contract with Saudi Arabia because of its human rights and the case of Raif Badawi. So
Finally.
This is great news for everybody.
Stay with us. The Persian New Year, called Nowruz, marks the first day of spring. It's partly rooted in the Zoroastrian tradition, but it's an ancient holiday that was celebrated thousands of years ago. When the Islamic regime of Iran first took power, it tried to ban the pagan celebration, but couldn't stop it. The advent of another year is a good time to reflect on the past and renew hopes for a future that will see positive changes in Iran, beginning with an end to the Islamic regime and its brutality. So we were talking about, since this new year, we thought we would talk about all the lovely things that have happened to us and to other people. We've been interviewing a couple of people, which we'll show you later on. And so it's good just to have some good news instead of all the insane fatwas and, shocking news.
We're going to have that anyhow.
We have to have that, yeah. But so basically for me personally, I would say that the best thing that happened to me this past year was the fact that we had Bread and Roses.
I think that was great. I think that was good. One of the key moments, and I think was important, was also the conference, the October conference, international conference, that brought many secularists and atheists and progressive people together to take a stock of the secularist sort of situation. I thought that was a great moment for me.
Yeah,
personally.
I mean, and also I think politically for me, it's just a lot of all the protests that took place. I mean, in a sense, you see in this past year, Sakina Mohammadi-Ashtiani, that we've campaigned on for so many years, who was facing death by stoning, was released. Yes. I know it's just one person, but she represents so many people who are facing these unjust laws.
Sure.
And the fact that she can actually be reunited with her family now is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And I think millions of people took part in that protest, and I think that's really a good moment for everybody. And I'm not sure if that actually the news was it was very well publicized, but the fact that she's been released into the family is great news. Yeah.
And I mean, what some of the other things were just the protests, the whole unveiling movement in Iran, the protests against acid attacks there, the biggest protest in recent history, against the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Yeah. All of that is it does make you feel like you can always have hope, irrespective.
What about in Britain? We've had a few successes in Britain
definitely,
as well?
Yeah, definitely in Britain.
We've had the Law Society.
Yep. I mean, in fact,
backing off.
In fact, it's interesting because some of the people that we've asked to tell us about what were their best parts of the week was in fact Pragna Patel from Southall Black Sisters, who talks about the Law Society victory. We've got Chris Moose talking about the victory against gender segregation at universities. And Geeta Sahgal talks about finally getting vindicated, with her, discussion with Amnesty International over them being a jihadi pro-Al-Qaeda organization. So let's go and look at some of the things other people have said, and we'll come back to discuss it further.
the best thing is that happened to us last year, I think, is we started a huge campaign against gender segregation UK universities, where religious societies were segregating men and women by gender, and the Universities UK public body had issued a guidelines that saying that imposition, forcing people to have gender segregated public events would be legal. So we launched a campaign against that and forced the Universities UK, after getting a lot of support from various political parties, to withdraw the guidance. And then in July of last year, the EHRC, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, finally issued a guideline saying that very clearly within UK law, gender segregation is discrimination. And now we can take that forward to monitor universities and see if they're really implementing that.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
The best thing that happened this last year is we see the atheist movement in the Islamic countries, especially the Middle East and North Africa, are going bigger, and they got more media coverage and more campaigns, especially defying campaigns to defy the fasting laws all over, from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And it was one of the biggest campaign till now. And it made me really happy and proud that more and more people take the risk of their lives, of their jobs, of everything, just to be open about their ideas and to say that we're different. And we stand for universal human rights and democracy.
من ابتدا میخوام رسیدن بهار و سال نو رو به بینندگانتون تبریک بگم و آرزوی این داشته باشم که زندگیشون مثل طبیعت زیبا و زیباتر بشه. سال گذشته برای من در عین حالی که سال خبرهای بدی داشتیم، در عین حال خبرهای خوبی داشتیم. بعد نسل جدیدی که تجربیات ما رو نداشت بعد از انقلاب به دنیا اومد، ولی این نسل همچنان مثل ما گفت جمهوری اسلامی رو قبول نداره و امسال اوج این اعتراضات بود. از هر زاویه میبینیم گفتن که نه خودشونو به جمهوری اسلامی گفتن. و از جمله میخوام اینجا سال گذشته این اتفاقی که برای ما افتاد برای ما همه دردناک بود، میخوام از ریحانه جباری یادی بکنم. ریحانه با یه جمله میتونست مرگشون زندگی به زندگی برگرده، ولی ریحانه جلوی اینا ایستاد و قبول نکرد. میخوام یادشو اینجا گرامی بدارم و به شعله پاکروان بگم ما همه همراه اون یاد ریحانه رو در سال جدید گرامی میداریم.
Well, first of all, I want to say Happy Nowruz, or Nowruz Mubarak, because it's actually our festival as well. It's a Kashmiri festival. It's a Parsi festival in India, so, you know, it's part of my tradition too. And the best thing that happened was that Gage, which is a group of ex-Guantanamo detainees who are actually a Jihadi Front organization, a pro-Al-Qaeda organization, their public relations in Britain in a way, they were exposed thoroughly. Now, they've been exposed to us for a very long time, but they gave a press conference saying Jihadi John was a sweet and gentle individual and bought posh baklava. So actually, we had some posh baklava today to celebrate the fact that they thoroughly exposed themselves. They showed that they can't even condemn stoning, punishments and things like that because they're not theologians. And they came out actually defending many aspects of terrible ISIS regimes, Daesh, the Daesh regime, and Al-Qaeda. And Amnesty International was embarrassed yet again in their relationship with them. But this scandal is actually still unfolding. So there'll be more good news coming.
Great, thank you.
فکر کنم سال خوبی بود روی هم رفته. نقاط خیلی خوب داشت، نقاط خیلی بد داشت. مثلا تو کمیته علیه اعدام کار میکردیم، رادیوی کمیته علیه اعدام تشکیل شد. اونجا به هر حال چیزای خیلی خوب بود، خبرای خوب بود، خبرای بد بود. و در عین حال پیوستنمون شد، قبلتر از اون پیوستنمون به حزب کمونیست کارگری خبر خوبی بود. اتفاقی که تو سال گذشته برای خود من و رفقایی که با هم اومدیم و نهایتا هم این اواخری که داریم نزدیک میشیم به سال جدید، خبر بچه دار شدن من و نوشین شاید یکی از خبر خیلی خوب دیگه امسال.
تبریک از
خیلی ممنون. در ضمن نوروزم تبریک میگم به همه و امیدوارم که سال خوبی باشه.
Happy New Year. It's been a great year actually. Just when you think it's not possible, the possible happens. Who would have thought that the fight against fundamentalism could be so easy? We've had some great victories, but I guess the one that took us by surprise most was the fact that the Law Society, which had issued guidance to promote Sharia compliance amongst the legal profession, which we opposed on the basis that it promoted actually gender discrimination, was withdrawn in 2014. And that was followed by a public apology by the Law Society saying that they'd got it wrong. That was great because we weren't expecting the Law Society to withdraw so quickly its guidance on Sharia compliance in relation to drawing up wills. And we certainly weren't expecting an apology. So that was really welcome. I think they were thoroughly embarrassed because as an institution of law, they should be promoting a rights-based legal culture, and instead they were promoting a very discriminatory, misogynistic, homophobic culture. And so it was great to see them squirm as much as they did, and to issue a public apology to us. I think that's really, really given us a lot of confidence, because it's made us feel that, when the tide seems to be really against us, it is possible to just put your foot in and sometimes just swim against the tide.
I hope you enjoyed those short segments from different people. We asked them what was the best part of the past year. I mean, Imad Habibuddin, who is the founder of the Council of Ex-Muslims, he said that it was the rise of atheism in the Middle East and North Africa, and the fact that this past year, they had the biggest fast-breaking picnics ever that had happened before, and that it happened in many different countries where people who are forced to fast, because it's the law in those countries, say, we're not going to fast, we don't want to fast, and they break the fast. They might face arrest. They were attacked in Morocco. I know some of the activists were beaten, but nonetheless, they did that. And I think it's a huge success for all of us, as are many of the protests that we discussed. Let's now go and talk about the shocking news of the week. In shocking news of the week, we've got news that in Turkey, a Quran teacher, who's a woman, by the way, was trying to quiet down her class. It's a mixed class of boys and girls. And she basically told the girls, 13-year-old girls, that because they're unveiled, they deserve to be raped. That's
Shocking. This is unbelievable. I mean, that's the sort of rubbish that in all religious schools peddle. These are the sort of things they keep day in, day out, they tell children. But the difference is that now parents have come out and they want the teacher sacked, rightly so. And I think that's a really just demand for the teacher. Not only be sacked, I think they should close down religious schools.
Well, the thing is that this is actually part of now schools in Turkey since 2012 because of Erdogan and his Islamicization of Turkey. I mean, what a setback for secularism. They've got voluntary elective Quran schools now, so children can elect to go to them, or their parents can elect them to go to them.
And then later on they make it compulsory. That's the
well, they've made religious education compulsory.
That's what they do. I think that's a step-by-step sort of thing. I think I think we should call it Islamist government.
Definitely.
In Turkey, is taking power, is trying to push back all the gains of, progressive gains that Turkey's had, and people are resisting. And I think the fact this is becoming news, it's not because just the teachers said that, it's because parents have demanded. Definitely. That's why it's made the news. The other piece of sort of news that we heard last week was that the atheist group in Turkey, the website now has been blocked by the government. So the Islamist government in Turkey is trying to restrict freedom of expression, as well as encouraging religious schools and religious education. And I think that we need to recognise that although the Turkish society is quite progressive, there's a lot of women's activists, young generation, they're not accepting the rule of Islam, but the government is trying hard.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the parents as well is that they were complaining about this Quran teacher, and they said that even when the young woman, was raped and murdered, Aslan, and there were mass protests against her, this teacher had told the students not to go and protest, but instead to pray for her.
Absolutely.
And so again, we see the really negative role that religion can play in people's lives, and why, of course, it can be a private matter, but for goodness sakes, keep it away from children, keep it away from schools.
And as soon as it comes into public space and public domain, it has a disastrous and negative impact, I agree.
Yeah, and also to go back to the Turkish Atheist Society, they're really a group that we must support. They're affiliated with the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, and I know them well. They're just really brave, wonderful people, and we need to raise a huge outcry of the fact that it can be banned. You've got Islamist websites saying that girls can be murdered, that apostates can be beheaded left, right and center. You have these sorts of websites, they're never banned, and then it's people who are promoting free thought, rationalism, saying that people have a right to atheism, secularism. That's the website that gets banned.
And we need to recognize there's a huge fight going on in Turkey. We need to pay a lot of attention and support the secularists and atheists there. And if that's they're of major force for good in Turkey.
Yeah, I definitely think that Turkey is an important country for us as secularists, as atheists, as free thinkers, whether we're religious or not, to really look at and pay attention to and support. There are people who are fighting for very basic universal values, whether it's against religious education, whether, it's the parents criticizing the Quran teacher, whether it's all those masses of people that came out in Gezi Park and demanded secularism, or people who have started the atheist organization there. And we really have a responsibility to look at their fight as our own. We are only going to win and be if we're stronger and if we're together. Insane Fatwa of the Week is from our very own Mr. Khamenei, who has now said that the regime's policy on contraceptives is an imitation of the Western lifestyle. And he wants the Iranian population to be doubled for whatever reason.
I think they want more people to send to war. That's what it is. But interestingly, the whole movement in Iran for vasectomy and using contraceptive to manage population, and for young people who are very socially active and sexually active as well, contraceptive was quite a sort of way of managing the social life as well as number of children that they have. Now the Islamic regime has recognized this is a battleground and they want to stop it. The other thing is that in reality the explosion of population in Iran has brought a level of difficulty for the Islamic regime, and no sane sort of person who's planning a society would just ask people without any restriction double the population. I think that this is just crazy, and everybody's up in arms against this mad, crazy man who the thing is he's going to die very soon, incidentally.
Well, the thing about this is also, I think it's a good example of how religion is used in politics. In the 80s, when they killed off all those people during the Iran-Iraq war, they wanted people to have children. In the 90s, they decided to control it, and their policy was no more than 2 children. And now it's become a Western imitation, and they're trying to restrict it. And it's serious because they've actually got bills in the Islamic Assembly, because Khamenei said this, which will criminalize, a lot of the things that are now permissible, like vasectomies, voluntary sterilizations, and also, distribution of condoms and so on and so forth. And basically what it's going to do is reduce women to becoming baby-making machines.
Yeah, and the fatwa is, they make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
There's no rules and regulations.
Why does he want the population doubled? It's because everybody hates them and they want to create more babies that are going to hate them.
And I think part of it is actually to, to effectively by this to control and manage that confrontation that exists in society. So they're actually intervening at that level to stop the confrontation that exists between the young people and the establishment.
I mean, one of the things Khamenei said is that the population in Iran is aging, which again isn't true. I mean, you've got 70% of the population under 35.
Yes.
Over 50% is between the ages of 20 to 30. And one person was saying, one of these researchers was saying that in fact it's because they're not having children because they don't have the money to do anything because of the social, economic, political pressures, that people aren't able to get married and have children and, all of that as well.
Yeah, no matter how much fatwa this guy sort of issues, the reality is that young people are against this policy and they'll ignore it. But it's a battleground between the young generation and the religious establishment.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that it's going to become part of the law because most likely it will be followed through. And what this will mean is that it will put a lot of pressure on women to have more children. And what they're doing along with this, they're bringing laws which say priority must be given to men with children, then married men, and then women with children. And they're restricting even further women's right to divorce, all the things that will prevent women from not having children. So it's going to cause a lot of, children that are not wanted, abortions, backstreet abortions.
Yeah.
It's going to create a huge problem. And already women in Iran, have horrible situation in the sense that they're so discriminated against legally, and from their testimony being worth half that of a man's, to the fact that 9-year-olds can be considered criminally responsible and be married and so on and so forth. And here we've got another sort of pressure on Iranian women. So rightly, I think people are criticizing it and trying to push this back.
Now, the good news of the week is that the Swedish government has actually tore up an arms deal with the Saudi Arabia.
I love that.
This is such a good news.
Yeah.
The reaction by the Saudi government, incidentally, the reason for this has been twofold. One is the human rights in Saudi Arabia, and specifically the Swedish government is referred to the case of Rauf Badawi, and that's such a great thing to hear. But, usually governments, when they want to, they condemn it generally and they carry on. They send, for example, the British government carries on sending Prince Charles across
and sending more arms.
More arms, absolutely, and the deal, and there's always businessmen behind this. I said we need to have, and this is great news to actually have. The reaction of the Saudi government has been to withdraw its ambassador to Sweden, and our reaction would be
good.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is that Sweden has torn up a 10-year arms deal with the regime.
Yes.
And seriously, that is what makes sense. If a regime like the Saudi regime, like the Iranian regime, I hope the Swedish government will focus on Iran next, is committing such human rights violations, why are you sending arms to them? It's common sense. Stop it,
Yeah, and also the Arab foreign ministers. Now, this is interesting. Arab foreign ministers have supported the Saudi government, and they've stopped the speech of the Swedish foreign minister.
Yeah, they stopped her speech, and this is what they've said, because in her speech she had said that it's a medieval practice of giving 1,000 flogs to Raif Badawi. And they were expressed condemnation and astonishment at this foreign minister's remark, which were incompatible with the fact that the constitution of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is based on Sharia law.
Because it's in the constitution, it's okay.
And which guarantees human rights. I mean, what sort of human rights are they talking about?
I have no idea. They're talking about Islamic human rights, most probably.
Their right to flog people.
That's what it is.
That's not a human right. I don't think they realize that.
It's Saudi Arabian rights.
It's like the Islamic human rights has no contradiction in terms.
They just use the name of human by mistake in there. I think it's just that's what it is. And I think this is a great news for everybody. And I think it's one of those things that it's possible to actually put pressure on governments to stop abusing human rights and undermining human rights. And I think that's what we need to do. People realise, you don't need to have sanctions. And I think that's one of the things.
Economic sanctions.
No economic sanctions, but political intervention is the key. And time and time again, we'll see the, particularly Western governments, they just condemn, they express indignation, that's all they do, but they actually don't do anything.
I think there's two things also that's important about this case. One is that, you've got his wife outside who's really like spearheading this amazing campaign. Now everybody knows who he is, and who's fighting in his corner, and it shows how important even one case is in changing the sort of power relations and status quo.
Yes.
We've done actually a similar letter to the British government.
Yes.
That's supported by many different personalities, as well as some MPs and so on and so forth.
You wrote that to David Cameron?
We've written that to David Cameron.
Has he responded yet?
Well, it's just been sent out.
Okay.
But one of the good things about that is that with the example of Sweden, this is definitely something we should be pushing in other countries as well, from Britain to Canada, Australia, wherever. And I think we also can look at it as a lesson on putting pressure via specific cases on other governments that are causing these sorts of, horrendous human rights violations, like, I'm looking at you, the Islamic regime of Iran.
And I think let's hope that in this coming year, we'll have a lot more good news to share. Hopefully, we'll see Rauf Badawi freed,
Yes.
and his right and restored, and a lot more governments react to abuse of human rights in the Islamic-ridden societies without any shame, and that's what we need to do.
So again, we're wishing you a happy new year.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
absolutely.
interrupted.
From
both of us.
yes,
Yeah,
okay.
we just want an excuse
Yes,
to have another sip.
more drinks. Tell us about your views about the program. We always welcome your comments. Write to us, email us, go on our Facebook, and don't forget to support us financially.
Yeah, we've got a Patreon site now where we can get support from you for just even $1 a week, and we've now got 11 patrons. So thank you to all of you who have supported us. We hope you enjoyed this week's program, and we look forward to seeing you again next week at the same time and same place. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya.
We're hosting a program called Bread and Roses. It's a weekly program that's broadcast in Persian and English in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Iran as well. And it's also shown on YouTube internationally.
And we've been doing this since last May. We're coming up to our year's anniversary, and we've had quite a lot of fun making these videos.
We discuss taboo-breaking, free-thinking ideas. The Islamic regime of Iran has called us immoral and corrupt.
And that's why you need to support us. We are the alternative voice in Middle East and North Africa.
Of corruption and immorality. So do support us. Here's a short video from Patreon that explains how you can help us with even just $1 a week. That's nothing. Support us.
Patreon lets fans become patrons of their favorite artists and content creators. It's different than Kickstarter because it's not about one big project that requires lots of funding. It's more for bloggers or YouTubers or webcomics, anyone who creates on a regular basis. Here's how it works. When you become a patron, you're agreeing to give an artist a tip of an amount you set every time they release a piece of content, whether it's a new song, a video, or a recipe. You can set a monthly maximum to make sure that you're always within your budget. Choose an amount, enter your payment information, and you're done. Becoming a patron allows you to view and post in the artist's stream, and in exchange for your support, artists offer additional patron packages, which might include monthly Google Hangouts, music production tutorials, pre-sale concert tickets, or anything they can offer as a way to say thanks. Patreon, empowering a new generation of content creators.